Hello everyone, operator Starsky here. Very nice to meet you tonight. We are jumping straight to the updates from Ukraine because we have quite a few news. First and foremost, today missile strikes were made against Ukrainian cities of Zaporizhia and Mykolaiv. At the same time, our officials reported that the German Iris-T is already operating in the southern part of Ukraine. So we can expect that less Russian missiles will reach their targets, and we will be hoping that this number will be zero at some point. Also, according to Ministry of Culture of Ukraine, Russians tend to steal and move to Russia the art and other and different cultural objects from the museums. We already noticed a bunch of such cases that are already being investigated by Ukrainian authorities. We also have information from Mykolaiv. So comparing to other cities, as well as Kherson, Mykolaiv is 100% major city of Ukraine. Its population is probably 3 times bigger than in Kherson, and Russians failed to take the city since the beginning of the invasion, and they keep trying. Of course, not as much as previously, because at this point Mykolaiv is the main center of operations. We have quite a lot of troops stationed there, and those troops are operating in the area of Kherson as well. They're trying to encircle and eliminate Russian troops on the right bank of River Dnipro. But we have information from Vitaly Kim, chief of civilian military administration of Mykolaiv. He reports that almost 800 multi-story buildings, civilian buildings, were damaged by Russian fire. And of course, this means that there's quite bigger number of those damaged buildings, because Vitaly Kim is only talking about multi-story buildings. Plenty of buildings, unfortunately, were destroyed in Mykolaiv. Unfortunately, we can only imagine the real number of casualties there. Also, according to press secretary of the National Security Council of White House, John Kirby, Russia planned mass airstrikes on Ukraine days prior to the collapse of Crimean Bridge. This is according to CNN, and he says that probably this attack on Ukraine was planned during some extended period of time. But it doesn't mean that the explosion at the Crimean Bridge could accelerate some of their plans. So it looks like either a coincidence or probably destruction of Crimean Bridge was part of their plan. Again, while reviewing those videos made with the help of those CCTV cameras installed on the bridge, again, which is quite interesting, because it's not like they have CCTV installed like every 100 meters on that bridge, but they had a couple of cameras installed specifically in the area where that bridge exploded. While reviewing those videos, we can clearly see that there is some kind of vessel passing under that bridge exactly the moment where this explosion happens. So we cannot know for sure. There are still a lot of details that require clarification. But according to the Ukrainian military intelligence, Russians planned those missile strikes on Ukraine for quite a long period of time. And according to our information, their strategic bombers were relocated to the airbase Alenia on October 8th. And the command, the order to strike Ukraine was issued on October 2nd. So we have all the evidence that tell that Russians were planning those missile strikes even prior to destroying this bridge. There are some speculations, of course, why they could have done it. And according to that's a separate news. According to Pramila Patten, she is a representative of General Secretary of the United Nations regarding sexual abuse in conflict. She says that sexual abuse committed by Russian forces in Ukraine is basically part of their military strategy in Ukraine. She says when women are being detained and raped all the day, when they start sexually abusing small kids, when you see them torturing and cutting off their genitals, when you hear women that women that I'm sorry, I forgot this word, that testify against Russian soldiers, it's definitely a military strategy. And when those victims say what those Russians were telling them during those rapes, it's definitely a tactic of dehumanizing of victim that was implemented on purpose. She says that according to the testimonies, the age of victims of rape that was committed by Russian is between 4 and 82 years. Some of majority of raped victims were women and girls, but Russians also tend to rape boys and men. And she also claims that the special representative of the General Secretary of the United Nations, after the beginning of this invasion, the United Nations received almost 150 inquiries regarding the sexual abuse that was committed by Russian forces in Ukraine, and that's just top of the iceberg. End of quote. So again, Russian army is quite notorious regarding military crimes, regarding war crimes throughout history. And basically, I think that any citizen of Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, Georgia, Syria will agree with me. I'm not even mentioning Chechnya, of course. They all agree on that because we had this curse of being their closest neighbors, unfortunately. And we can see that they continue doing that because recent report that was published by Mr. Eric, sorry, it was United Nations investigator that, together with his team, traveled around Ukrainian territories, and his name is Eric Mosse, and they collected information from more than 120 victims as well as witnesses regarding Russian crimes, regarding crimes committed against infants as well. And on September 27th in Geneva, that report was presented to journalists and to the United Nations. It's available on the internet, by the way. So those are most of the news from Ukraine. We also have news that from what we saw in Russian social media, some of Russian mobilized men are already dead. They already returned to Ukraine, to Russia from Ukraine, even despite the fact that Putin promised that they will only come to Ukraine in 2 weeks. A lot of them were already arrested by Ukrainian army. Again, we have those videos in YouTube. Everybody can see those. And this basically tells us that not even that their mobilization fails, it tells us that Russia fails itself. And according to Ukrainian citizens, it has no future whatsoever.
Some of these tales are just, but can anybody out there honestly say they're surprised we're hearing such horrific stories? Really? I'm horrified to hear them, but I'm not overly shocked because, you know, I mean, historically, look who we're talking about here. I know there's been a flood of questions and comments coming in, and I bet we could definitely get through some here. Let's see. Dave is our captain of tonsillitis tonight, but he's still sort of able to talk. I wonder how he's doing over there.
Just about. I wanted to just throw a quote out there for Aimee about the that particularly poignant example that Starsky just gave. The quote from the UN Special Representative: when women and girls are kidnapped for days and raped, when you start raping little boys and men, when you see a series of cases of genital mutilation, when you hear the testimonies of women evoking Russian soldiers equipped with Viagra, it is clearly a military strategy. Equipped. Like...
Equipped with Viagra. Oh. Yeah.
That's heavy. I did have a few very good questions that are coming through in the live chat. One of them, let's start with the what should we call him? Emperor Palpatine. Space Wolf is asking, any thoughts on Putler and his barely being able to stand still at the recent press conference?
He was doing the fucking pee-pee dance, man.
Sorry, can you repeat it once again, please?
Sure. Any thoughts on Putler and his barely being able to stand still at the recent press conference?
Hard to say. Again, there's a lot of talks and rumors about Putin being sick or whatever. He's an old man, let's say. He's an old man. He's 70 years old, I mean, on the West, it's not an old man. 70 years on the West, it's when you only start living and being able to, travel around the world and enjoy life. In Russia, 70 years old is kind of, you got to prepare for the soil. You got to get used, So I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Unfortunately, I don't know about his condition. The only condition that would make me happy is, if we are not able to see Putin through thermal imaging device.
I wanted to throw something else out here as well. There's one wonderful point that's hasn't been mentioned yet by Dart, by any of us, but Dart mentions it. Starsky, your thoughts about Elon Musk's threats to end free internet Starlink service for Ukraine? I don't know the exact situation, but it seems to be a discussion between how much Starlink is providing versus an argument on the complete opposite end, which is sort of war is not a business, and there's like a gap there's a line in the middle where there's balance to be struck.
Yeah, so the situation looks like this. Elon Musk provided Ukraine, specifically Ukrainian army, with huge amounts of Starlink terminals, more than 1,500, I think it was 1,800 plus a bunch more, were bought using American budget. So basically, American taxpayers bought those Starlink systems for Ukraine through the United States Agency for International Development, and they were also shipped to Ukraine using American budget. And we also know that Elon Musk provided some of those terminals for free, but now he says that Pentagon or anybody else must pay for services provided by Starlink because he loses profit. And it's like controversial situation. On one hand, we know that business is a business. You got to pay for service. Other thing is when you give a donation or a humanitarian aid, it's a humanitarian aid, and when you start asking to pay back, it stops being humanitarian aid. On the other hand, we know that Ukraine started working on this, so the whole international community basically started working on this. They were searching for sources of budgeting to pay for the Starlink service. And we also know that, according to the recent news that we received, Elon Musk promised to pay for this service.
Yeah, didn't he backtrack and turn around and say, no, okay, sorry, it's all good, and he's going to keep doing it?
Yeah, so basically, I would like to quote his Twitter. He says, the hell with it. Even though Starlink is still losing money and other companies are getting billions of taxpayers' dollars, we'll just keep funding Ukraine government for free. And I think that probably it's like, a big victory over himself. I mean, I can appreciate that. In case he means what he says, then it's great, it's awesome, and he has my respect in this regard.
Yeah, it didn't take long to fix. All good, we had a donation come in, so we should turn to Aimee here and see if she's all ready for us.
I sure am. We got a donation in, and I can't thank you enough. Raven7 donated £7 sterling, and it says Starsky and Shills make a great combo. Thanks for all you do. Free world, speed that air defense. Thank you so much, Raven7. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, big thanks, Raven. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, see, there's real screw ups in my OBS because Aimee, did you notice when you're talking, your big black thing is back? It's no longer keyed. What the hell's going on? OBS is falling apart.
What is
I
up
said it
with
at
that?
I said it at the beginning. We'll be lucky if we get through the stream because it just seems to be crazy. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention real quick one thing. It's very important. Thing is, whenever you hear people talking about, Ukraine must negotiate with Russia in order to avoid victims and yada yada and blah blah, it's the same as saying that Jewish people should have had negotiations with Hitler in order to avoid escalation and victims, because in the situation where there's people who want to leave and people who want to kill them, there can be no solution. There can be no negotiations, because what do you negotiate? Number of people being killed?
yeah.
And that's exactly what we see today. Finally, Russia was recognized as a terrorist regime by European Parliamentary Assembly, and that's a big step forward. I think that soon other international institutions will recognize Russia as a terrorist regime as well, and probably even I don't know, the US make this step as well, because we know that there's a law that will be discussed very soon, and we also know that senators unanimously wanted to vote for this law as well. And we must understand that Russia is not a country that you can expect negotiations with. Russia is a terrorist regime that should be destroyed. And yes, they have nuclear weapons. It makes things a bit more complicated, but it's not like we didn't see it coming. I did, for some reason. A lot of Ukrainians did. That's why we were prepared for that, and we were preparing for this invasion as well. So we should understand that no negotiations can be possible. We gotta force Russia to stop their aggression. We gotta force Russia to change, because at this point there's only one country in the world that literally hates the world. It's Russia. And name any country in the world besides North Korea and Iran, and there's a reason Russia wants to destroy or capture this country. I'm not kidding. Even they even had their influencers in Southern America.
We should do the super chat if Aimee's there. We've got one handy.
We sure can. We've got a super chat from level 70 for Canadian $6.99. Says, Operator Starsky, the Russian Shills are saying today that there is another massive Ukrainian counterattack in the south around Kherson. True or false? Thank you very much, level 70.
Thank you so much, buddy. Yes, we had information from our authorities as well that this counterattack is ongoing currently. We have reports that multiple Russian soldiers give up, which is great. And recently, it was probably 2 days ago, we had information that Russian unit that was left there completely without supplies, and they were commanded to stay there until they die. So they shot their commander and gave up to Ukrainian army, together with their weapons and their tanks and vehicles, which is great. So again, we saw it coming because they cannot receive all their needed supplies in terms of ammunition and rations and other things like warm clothes, because it's kind of cold in Ukraine nowadays, specifically in the nights, specifically in areas located not far from water, big bodies of water. So they are they're losing there. That's definitely what I can say, and it's a matter of time. Probably it will not be as as rapidly done. I'm talking about our counteroffensive there. Probably it will not be as rapid as in Kherson, because they brought numerous troops from Kherson, from the Luhansk region to Kherson region, and stationed them there specifically. So that occupied territory on the right bank of Dnipro, it's left bank if you look at the map, but geographically it's the right bank. So in that territory, there's quite a lot of Russian troops. They when this Kharkiv counteroffensive started, before it started, Russians moved a lot of those troops to the southern part of Ukraine, specifically in Kherson, specifically to protect this city against Ukrainian troops. And I don't think that it's gonna be a rapid operation, because it's always easier to fight against enemy that is exhausted, and that's probably exactly what we are doing now. Again, there are hundreds of villages. There's a lot of towns in that region controlled at this point by Russian troops. There are different units, different condition of those units, and we are acting accordingly, because again, it's everything should be done wise.
We should let's see if Dave's got a couple of questions from the viewers for us here.
Sure thing. There is there's a double header of two questions. There we go. Charles and Shay roughly asking a very similar question. After the Russians are driven out of Ukraine, what country do you think is best to organize the International Criminal Court to prosecute the Russian war criminals? And then the second point, very similar. Do you think war crime charges and prosecutions will be able to be done with most who did them?
Regarding second question, I really hope so. And if those criminals will not be brought to justice alive, then we gotta make sure that they will not make it alive in general, right? So as for the first question, I think that the countries that also suffered those war crimes committed by Russian troops in any period of history, they should be involved in this. And I'm talking again about Poland, I'm talking about Baltic countries, because, for example, a lot of Russian pilots, a lot of Russian war criminals that currently commit crimes in Ukraine, they were also involved into other conflicts, like in Syria. A lot of Russian pilots that were captured in Ukraine, they participated in Syrian operations, specifically in bombing Aleppo. So those crimes are connected with each other, and I think it would be wise if we could also involve other countries that suffered from Russian army, because they must receive complete satisfaction from punishing Russian criminals.
Mm-hmm. Well said. We should line Aimee up for a couple of shout outs that we've got in now.
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you. We have a donation from Jonesy. Thank you so much, Jonesy, for Canadian $15. Says Russia wants a ceasefire so they can save themselves and regroup to attack again. They never stop. So Ukraine can do this. It is such hypocrisy. Surely Ukraine must push on and give them no chance. And another. Thank you so much, Jonesy. And then Julie Noor had a super chat for 50 Norwegian krona. Says, warm hug to you, Starsky. I saw an interview with some soldiers from the front. They look tired, restless body language. Hope the war is over soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support.
Big things,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much. Yeah, I completely agree on that. Our guys are tired, of course, because this combat continues non-stopping for 7 months, and unfortunately there's nobody to supplant our guys on the front lines. But I also agree on the first comment, because again, we're returning to this question of negotiations. At this point, Russia needs those negotiations, of course. They need to stop losing by any cost. And that's why their main narrative that they're trying to spread in the information field is that Ukraine loses millions of troops, and yes, civilians are suffering. That's why we have to stop civilians from suffering, and the only way you can do that is to negotiate with invaders that invaded your country, which is so stupid. So we are not going to give up. We are supported by the whole world, by strongest powers that are out there, like NATO, like European Union, and tens of millions of people all around the earth. So we are not going to give up or be defeated. That I can promise you. Yes, there will be hard times, and there are hard times when civilian objects are being targeted by Russian missiles, and they do whatever they can to dig themselves deeper into their own grave, and they will face a very, very big responsibility for what they done to Ukrainian people. They don't understand that there's no chance for them to win, and their future is doomed completely. It's like, it's like taking a loan from some very, very sketchy man. Yes, you will receive your money, you will celebrate for a while, like they celebrated after striking Ukrainian cities. But at some point you will have to pay back big time. And I see it coming. And we expect that completely.
Let's see here. We could probably turn right to Aimee for a couple of shout outs again here.
Yes, please. We have a couple shout outs to do. We've got a member message from Cats who says, Starsky, do not forget we want a Futch plushie. Thank you so much, Cats. That would be great. And then we have a super chat from Boston Danny for $9.99 US. Starsky, in the past you didn't want the Kersh Bridge destroyed because they need a way to get out. It seems like one part of the bridge was partially left standing. Was this a good compromise? Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, it probably is, because they have one way to run away now. Again, Kerch Bridge consists of basically two bridges. There's this railway, and there's the automobile bridge, okay, for cars. And the railway bridge is basically the most important of them all, because Russians massively use railway to deliver their troops and supplies and ammunition. And they built all of their logistics around this railway. Railway in this regard is much more important than other types of roads. So yes, it's a good idea to destroy railway connection. As for that other part of bridge, we can leave it for Russians to get out at some point. They will use cars, automobiles, and I will even buy them fuel myself as much as I can.
I wanted to throw a few more questions out there on nuclear, and I was reading one article that was suggesting that there were some kamikaze drones that were being used in as it Zaporizhia. That sounds quite concerning. Is that the first of all, is that happening, and secondly, is that the future of warfare we're looking at there?
I think so, because in my opinion, war will evolve and military technologies will evolve. The tactics will evolve as well. And probably we're seeing some new stage of this warfare development in Ukraine, unfortunately. But I think that probably in the future's war will only be managed by people with like laptops. That's all. I hope it happens this way, because it will help civilization to avoid massive victims. On the other hand, I believe in future without wars. That's as a military, that's my biggest dream.
I agree. I did have another couple of questions from the chat on nuclear, and there was something very interesting that was being asked, and I don't think it's got. Maybe it was Shay again, but it doesn't have a name to it specifically. Do you know about the Russians putting propaganda pictures about a nuclear metal cylinder with Ukrainian text on it on Telegram? Never heard of it.
No, I didn't hear about that. I saw some metal cylinder. Not sure if there was like Ukrainian letters on it. Probably it was part of Russian cruise missile that was launched from Belgorod, I think, and it exploded in the air. Because we have quite a few evidence of Russian missiles that don't make it far after being launched from Belgorod. A lot of them fall at the heads of Belgorod citizens. Yesterday in my stream, I posted a video of Russian power station that was directly hit by Russian rocket. There's even sound of this rocket or missile flying into this power station, and it explodes. Unfortunately, probably we are talking about the same picture. The one I saw, there was nothing about Ukrainian text on it. Again, Ukrainian and Russian alphabet is very similar. There's only 3 or 4 letters that are different in this alphabet. The rest is probably the same.
Yeah, I'm no expert. It's good to get these sorts of little details, because there's so much rumor, and we've discussed so much over the past 6, 7, 8 months of how we clarify what is true, and that's so important just in life, let alone war, because our lives at risk. There is another question as well on Russian nuclear weapons. Michael was saying they are expensive to keep at 100% capacity. The warheads lose 5% efficiency a year. What are the chances they have actually been servicing them at huge expense?
Could be true again, because Russians have money, they have oil and gas, and if they were able to spend billions of dollars for their propaganda, I think they can also spend same amount of money on their nuclear weaponry. So I think that we should not expect that all of their missiles will malfunction if they launch them at us. Again, we're talking about different types of nuclear ammunition, like strategic missiles and tactical shells, tactical nuclear shells that you can even launch using a howitzer. So I would not be very optimistic in this regard. We should still remember that Russians are playing with nuclear weapons, which is extremely dangerous.
We have brought this up before. It's well worth bringing up again. Obviously, there's a big thing that's been made about Ukraine and being convinced to get rid of their nuclear weapons. I forget the name of the agreement. Do you think Ukraine will, at the very least, host and possibly have their own nuclear weapons again someday as a result of this?
I think the better answer to this would be if Ukraine joined NATO, and NATO members have right to host, for example, bombers that belong to those countries that possess nuclear weapons. So I think that could be an answer. That's why I completely support this idea of Ukraine joining NATO, and I think that it should. We should have done it 10 years ago.
I mean, nobody here is going to disagree. How long do you actually think that's going to take? I did hear it was being fast-tracked. I don't know exactly what corners were being cut, but I suppose it's just a big piece of paper at the end of the day, surely.
Yes, so our president signed this inquiry to become for Ukraine to become a member of NATO. It's gonna take a while. Of course, it depends on NATO members. We are trying to do that with sped up procedure. Not sure if it's possible, but again, today we should reconsider a lot of things. We should reconsider the Security Council of the United Nations. If Russia should still have this right to veto the decisions and votes of Security Council members, we should also reconsider, I think, the structure of NATO and their legislation, because we are dealing with extremely changing environment today. I'm talking about geopolitical environment, where the biggest country that that was a big boogeyman for everybody for almost a century, maybe more. At some point, it went completely nuts, and we got to do something with that. Those laws that we have today, they don't really work. We should think about something more effective. And also, I forgot what I want to say.
Happens. Yeah, I mean, at this point, they've got to be kicked from all the clubs because they can't be trusted for nothing. My God, the color keying on this whole thing is just getting worse all the time. I'm going to turn it off. Hold on.
I agree on that. So currently, Russia is, because of its terroristic nature, it's been recognized as a terrorist regime. And we should also consider the fact that we don't usually invite terrorists to international institutions like United Nations, for example. So we should change a lot of things nowadays in order to improve international security, in order to improve our defense, both in terms of military defense, in terms of informational defense, because what we see today is that anti-democratic regime, terrorist regime of Russian Federation abuses and exploits the democratic legislation that is used in a civilized world, right? That's exactly the reason why we should adapt to this environment.
Yeah, totally. Have to. No choice. Oh, I forgot to turn that stupid green thing off. Let's see. We got a couple of shout outs. So if Amy's ready, we'll get right to them.
Yes, please, if I may. We have a couple super chats here that I would love to read out. We've got one from Inkboy for €5 who says, what is your view on old agreement where Ukraine gave up their nuclear bombs for Russian reassurance of Ukraine borders? Was it worth it?
I think it wasn't, because I asked this question to my viewers in some of previous streams. In your opinion, would Russia attack any European country today if NATO had no nuclear weapons?
Right.
How do you think would Russia take Alaska from the US if they had no nuclear weapons? Because Alaska is a traditionally Russian land. It belonged to Russia. and evil Americans tricked us to sell them our land where our grandparents lived. So nuclear weapons is a horrible thing, but it's a political weapon in the first place. And we must understand that in order to, for forces of light and everything good in this world to work, in order for karma to work, karma sometimes requires a bunch of tough guys armed with all kinds of shit. So, in my opinion, this Budapest Agreement was crazy. It was like that. The West thought, like, those guys, like Ukraine, like, who are they? I never heard about them. They were always, like, part of this Soviet bloc. They don't need those weapons. And Russia, of course, wasn't interested in strong Ukraine, able to defend itself. Ukraine
Obviously
was
not.
Ukraine was like, okay, like, if we keep those weapons, we'll have problems. If we don't keep them, maybe we won't, because those guys promise us safety. Those guys agree. Why not? So Ukraine did a noble and at the same time stupid stuff.
It's too bad that agreement didn't end with, you being in the whole NATO, blah, blah, all that. Like, it should have been much more significant.
Of course. Thing is, Ukrainians never traveled abroad until 1991. That's why they didn't have enough knowledge about the West because Ukraine only changed its military doctrine that that perceived Western countries as enemies in around 2008. Something maybe later, because in 2008 we still had mutual military exercise with Russia and Belarus on the territory of Ukraine and Belarus and Russia. So our anti-air guys had their training on the territory of Russia, because Russia had those facilities to train anti-air forces. That's why Ukrainians didn't know much about the West, aside of Hollywood movies. And yeah, movies are not the best source to learn about the West. And it took us quite some years to, start traveling abroad, to work abroad, to learn how other countries live, how they reform their government and economics, and how they get rid of their corruption, which is very important for Ukraine. And it took some time. In 1994, when this Budapest Agreement was signed, Ukrainians were still like, we want to live rich, like on the West, but we still have a lot of relatives like on the East. So what do we do? And those relatives keep saying that there's no better country than Russia, So we had to decide. It's like, do we have problems with all the world, or do we demonstrate that we are friendly and we want to be partners with everybody? But it's very hard to sit at two chairs at the same time.
Yeah.
So they gave up the weapon. What, for example, a Western country thought, the UK and the US, they expected probably that Russia will keep its word. Probably. I don't know. But on the other hand, they should have thought about what happens if Russia violates this agreement. What can be consequence? They should have thought about it, because it's a very logical thing. Whenever you make some kind of agreement with others, you should probably talk about this. What happens if you freaking invade Ukraine?
Yeah.
What's then? And I think that this estimation was never made. Never, ever. And that's why the West is shocked that Russia attacked Ukraine for real. And only now those mechanisms of defending our country are being made. And yes, the weapons that are being brought to Ukraine, the tanks, high precision artillery systems, and things like that, they play a huge role on a battlefield. But I think that they probably should have been there on the territory of Ukraine prior to this invasion, in order to make sure that it never happens. And the guarantee of security of Ukraine was never detailized. Nobody knew, like, in details. Those details were never discussed. It was like, just, we guarantee the blah blah blah, the sovereignty and stuff. But what happens now in Ukraine looks like anything but safety, unfortunately.
Right.
And yes, we're talking about tens of thousands of killed civilians, destroyed houses, and missile attacks all over Ukraine. It's not security. Security is when you can go to sleep and don't have bad dreams about, missile strikes that can destroy your house tomorrow. it's when you are calm and confident that tomorrow your country will not be hit by enemy fire. That tomorrow you will have peaceful tomorrow, right? That's
tomorrow the children can go to school.
Exactly. And
Right.
that's why what happens now is West is trying to help Ukraine as much as they can, but they should have predicted that. They should have known that this might happen, and they should have had some kind of mechanism to prevent it from happening, in my opinion. As for Russia, nobody had like any doubt about them, because again, Ukrainians were fighting against Russian invaders for centuries, since year 1000. And we knew that we cannot rely on them, so we relied on the West.
Yeah. We let's go back to Aimee here. We've got a couple of more supers we can get through and give everybody their big shout outs.
Absolutely. Yes, please. We've got one. The first one is from David Oliver for £5 says, I believe Ukraine should join NATO. However, I can't see all members agreeing to that. And a member can't be at war either. Then we have a second one from David Oliver for £5 who says the nuclear weapons in Ukraine was a memorandum with a promise on Russia not to invade Ukraine. So Russia has already lost its promise. And then level 70.
Yep.
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly. That's okay. No, and then we have one from level 70 for Canadian $6.99 says, after the Russians are kicked out of Ukraine, how will Ukraine deal with attacks launched from Russian territory? Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, so first of all, again, we were talking about this, the NATO rules, the rules by which this alliance is able to function and perform its functions and involve new members, right? So we think, I think that we should probably review those laws, those rules, because they must be efficient and they must be adapted to the challenges of today. As for the Russian strikes done from the territory of Russia, so I think one of the answers is this multi-layered and integrated anti-air defense that Mr. Borrell, I think, was talking about like yesterday. He mentioned this multi-layered integrated air defense system over Europe. And our president mentioned this system over Ukraine. So probably they are connected somehow. I think that it would be a great idea to become part of this European international anti-air defense, because we all need that. On the other hand, Russians cannot produce their cruise missiles in big numbers unless they invent some crazy shit. So I think that their capabilities of committing those missile strikes in the future will be very, very small. Anyways, so I think that our anti-air defense will be able to, solve this problem.
Sure hope so. Absolutely. Let's see. I think Dave's got some good questions lined up for us. So let's turn to him now.
Absolutely. We've got a couple on the what exciting name should we give him? The bastard of death, Putin himself. If someone else were in power in Russia instead of Putin, would other Russian rulers also have pretensions to occupy Ukraine, or is this only Putin's goal? Your opinion on that? Thank you, V.
There's quite a lot of Russian politicians. For example, they had that Zhirinovsky, who always wanted to destroy Ukraine and capture and stuff. We see quite a lot of Russian politicians that adopted this KGB-ish type of behavior that Putin has, and they use it quite successfully every day in their political life, in their statements. In Ukraine, we had this saying that Russian oppositioner, like Russian liberal, always finishes when the Ukrainian question begins, because they have this. They are convinced, basically, that Ukraine is like a smaller brother. They are convinced that Ukrainians want to hug Russians and live together in peace. We don't want that. We want Russians to fuck off from Ukraine and forget about us whatsoever. We don't want them to remember about such country at all. So that's the thing. Again, I receive a lot of questions about, like, what amount of time it requires for those relations between Ukrainians and Russians to heal and stuff. Ukrainians are not obsessed with this idea of being friends with Russians. It's like Russians are, for some reason. And this friendship is very, very deadly, believe me. So Ukrainians don't sleep and dream about being friends with Russians and listening to their gorgeous prison chanson and eat their shit. It's a no.
Absolutely not.
Never again.
We should do. Let me get it all ready here. See if this even works. But we've got Samantha's charity shout out of the week to do. Let me hit the button and see if it works. Holy shit, it worked. Hey, check it out. Here we go. We've actually made it happen. I thought for sure this was going to fail. But yeah, this is Samantha's Ukraine charity of the week, and they are Save Life. They've got really great stuff going on. I had a minute to check it out before, and I'm going to drop the link right now. And our Streamlabs bot is also dropping the link on the live chat every 10 minutes, the whole show. And we highly recommend you check them out. Great place to throw a few bucks if you're, doing what you can to help support and do your part. We highly recommend them. But yeah, that's Sam's charity shout out of the week. Thanks, Sam. I wonder, where are we here?
By the way, sorry, Dick. Samantha passed her greetings and much love to you guys because she, at this time, she's sleeping. She warned me about it, and she specifically asked to pass her greetings to you and much love. Quote.
Awesome. I'll give her a shout later and see how things are. Yeah, I knew the time change thing would not work well for her on that, but sometimes you can't win them all, right? We've got time for a few more questions and stuff, and then there's something I wanted to get into as well, but let's send it Dave's way and hope he's got just enough voice left to hang in there.
I'm taking a lot in between takes. I'm going to get there. That's okay. Just keep those questions short. That's the main thing. What asks, although I don't know if Putin's life story is true, recent news was that he even lied about his age, right?
Is it like love story or life story?
Putin's love story is probably not true either.
Love story. Are we talking about like that Putin eating that little boy's belly on a picture?
Oh God!
Oh, that's creepy.
That's so weird.
So that's basically his love story. I remember he visited school once, and he made this drawing of a cat look from behind that looked like a, like genitals. He's a crazy motherfucker. I'm sorry for my French, but he's like. One of the reasons why this Litvinenko was eliminated is because he had a lot of information on Putin. And among that was some information regarding him being a freaking pedophile. And because Putin wanted to avoid it, he got eliminated. Like, you can Google that. It's all available out there for you guys.
I mean, the whole thing with riding tigers and what the hell? He's just obviously such an idiot. It's crazy that,
Yeah, he's like, he wants to show that, he's like macho, alpha, whatever. And that's why he does all of those crazy videos of like flying together with like Starks and riding tigers, kissing horses, eating children. It's ridiculous. Guys, we're talking about a freaking maniac that lives inside of his own informational environment, and he doesn't really like understands what the reality is. Can you imagine, Dick, personally, can you imagine like standing on a street with your kid and suddenly some crazy motherfucker in a suit starts kissing your kid? Your reaction? I think he won't survive like for 2 seconds, right?
No, he would be on the ground and bloody in a pool of his own mess in seconds. No way.
That's what I'm talking about. Same here. Absolutely. I see my knife just sticking into his throat instantly. But we're talking about different worlds. The world that is called Russian world, aka Ruski Mir, is completely fucked up, guys. It's more than you can imagine.
It has to be, because for the soldiers to be willingly taking part in some of these unbelievable atrocities that we're hearing about, that's not the kind of thing that you just take some farm boy and put him in a military uniform and say, okay, here's Viagra, go out and rape and pillage. You normal people don't just go, yes, sir, and do it.
Yeah, and normal people don't celebrate missile strikes on civilian objects and houses and cities. I was monitoring Russian media after that. It's crazy, guys. It's as if, they see all Ukrainians as their sworn enemies, which now they are, and they celebrate killing those people. During missile strike, I was there yesterday on that crossroad in Kyiv downtown where this missile hit. The road was patched, thank God. So there are no traffic jams, nothing like that. But who died during this missile strike? A hospital doctor who didn't even treat like soldiers. She worked in a children's hospital called Ohmadit in Kyiv, and she was literally going to her job. In Ohmadit, there are different kinds of kids. Some of them have like cancer, blood diseases, different diseases. And she was a doctor saving lives of those kids. She died. But Russians were so much happy that Russia showed this power, that they are capable of shooting missiles across the world, across other countries, by the way, like Moldova, right? And punish those ungrateful American puppets.
Yeah. There was we had a donation come through that we should give a big shout out for if Aimee happens to be handy.
I am. I got back just in time for my tea.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yes. Jonesy donated Canadian $10, says, seriously, if someone raped my kids, murdered my brother, and raped me, then I was expected to be friends with them if they say they won't do it again. Ukraine can hate Russia forever, and that is just fine. I agree.
Well
Thank you so
said.
much, Jonesy.
Yeah,
you.
big thanks.
Yes,
Wow.
that's the reason. That's the reason why Ukrainians don't, dream about, drinking coffee with Russians and be good friends. It doesn't depend on us anymore. No, and some of Russians are so much abused when I speak about their atrocities, their missile strikes on Ukrainian cities and stuff, and they're so abused. They're like, why do you spread Russophobia? Some Russians support Ukraine. No. Some Russians who support Ukraine, they fight for Ukraine. That's the only type of support that we accept at this time. Because the Russians who truly support Ukraine, they don't get abused when we speak the truth. They literally say, yes, we are sorry because we were assholes, because we didn't do anything to prevent this war. So the only way we can help you is literally spill our blood on a battlefield by protecting you guys. And those are the only Russians that I recognize, support, and respect. Everybody else saying we support Ukraine, it's like, vibrating the air. It doesn't change any freaking thing. As well as, fleeing from Russia to other countries and stuff like that. All of those multiple popular Russian bloggers who fled, and people are so, feel so sorry about them. Like, oh my God, those guys had to flee their country. What will they do now? Guys, like, people who support Ukraine, they accept the fact that they screwed up big time, and they will never be, defending themselves, saying, no, like, not all the Russians are bad. I mean, that's what I heard. Yes, we screwed up, guys. And we are guilty because this shit happened for real. That's why we want to help. It's not like there were some good Russians, but they could not do anything because they were too weak. Who cares?
Yeah. Absolutely, who cares?
The worst thing is that their children will also be paying for this, because our children died. Their children will also be paying for this, their generations. Yep. Currently, we can see a lot of Russian politicians like Katz, for example. He's very popular on the West, but at the same time, he posts a lot of shit that would probably, I don't know, make people on the West angry, or like, he is one of those politicians who criticizes Putin, but he only does it to try to take his place, because he wants to take his place. And of course, he's not as any other Russian politician. He's not interested in paying reparations to Ukraine. Right. There are no Russian politicians in their opposition that accept and support this, this idea of paying reparations to Ukraine, because we know why. Because their country will, again, have no future, right? Because their country will meet its freaking demise, and they are doomed of living in poverty until the rest of their days. But guys, we didn't make this choice. It wasn't Ukrainians to blame. So
right.
that's why, again, I don't believe in good Russian politicians. They will do everything to, try to deflect all those everything, like all the accusations, and they will try to save their country as much as they can, save their budget, and because they cannot accept the fact, like Germans did, right? When you talk to Germans, they usually go like, well, because we have the story of being freaking maniacs, like Chris, for example. When I talk to him about Russian atrocities, he's like, I don't know if I even have right to comment that, because my country did the same. We did despicable things. What makes difference between civilized nations and freaking orcs is that civilized nations can accept this fact. They can accept that they were guilty and did different horrible things. Take, for example, Ukraine and Poland. We both did despicable things to each other during the World War II, and in even earlier periods of our history. But today we are the two closest friends in Europe, probably, because we accepted that, yes, we are guilty in what we did, but we have a chance to change it. And that's why we are so close now. That's why I believe that the friendship between Poland and Ukraine will never be destroyed. Never, ever. And that's exactly the reason why Russians try to destroy this friendship, because I see a lot of commentaries from Russians like, why don't you speak about Volyn massacre? Because, motherfucker, I will speak about Volyn massacre and bring my apologies to Polish people if I'm asked. I will not speak with it. I'm not gonna speak about it with you, Russian motherfucker, because I know what you're trying to do by asking those questions. And we, by the way, we have a lot of cases when Russians tried to make those provocations in Poland and Ukraine. They were trying to ruin Polish warriors' graves in Ukraine, and they tried to do the same in Poland, and blame each other, like blame Ukraine on Poland and vice versa. Because, again, because Russians are very strong in this, in informational warfare. So, returning to my question, which took a lot of time to answer, unfortunately, the difference between us and them is that we are part of civilized world. We can accept our guilt, and we can do everything to avoid it in the future, and we should do everything we can to avoid it, like Germans did, like Ukrainians and Polish people did. As for Russians, they will never accept it, except for those who currently is wearing uniform and actually fighting on the front lines.
Yep. Let's bring Aimee in. We got a super chat that just slid in.
Yes, we did. Please. We've got one from DJT for $20 American. Says, hey, Starsky, any idea how many Albanian fighters are currently in Ukraine? My cousin, who is Albanian, and his Croatian friend have been there since April. Thank you so much, DJT.
Thank you so much. I cannot tell you the exact number, but I know that there's a lot of them, probably like battalions. I can be wrong. Again, not trying to disinform you, because I don't know precise numbers of those guys. But specifically, Albanians and Croatians make a big part of international volunteers fighting for Ukraine. And according to statistics, by the way, according to statistics that were made, according to polls that were made among Ukrainians, their favorite Balkan countries are specifically Albania and Croatia.
Mm. Where are we? Oh, okay, yeah. We should switch right over to Dave for a couple of questions here now, I do believe. God, I was confused there for a second. I don't know what the hell happened.
You're in a permanent state of confusion, Dick. Don't worry. So we did have a wonderful point from Little Dickens too. I think that took way too long for my brain to work out. I do apologize. After the war, or perhaps before, get the US Veterans Admin to help Ukraine to plan treatment for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You will have a lot of it. And I'm guessing not just for the military, but for an entire country. Like if you had a stock that you had to invest after the war, it would be in like psychiatry, surely.
I agree on that because a lot of people require this help. A lot of people already receive this help, not only from our government and our medical institutions, but also from volunteers. I met them in Hostomel, for example, and we have to research the experience of the United States, of course, in regards to their military, but I think we also have to research experience of such countries as Bosnia, Croatia, countries like Japan, by the way, sure. And all those countries that had those, massive involvement of people into combat.
So there's definitely a lot of experience to draw on. And obviously, speaking on behalf of an entire country, you can have our help as well. I mean, I might as well be Prime Minister, but we would probably have a new one eventually by the end of the year. But there we are. That's by the by. Crazy Cat, who's a new member, had thrown out a question going back to the agreement we were talking about earlier, the Minsk agreement. Putin was part of the agreement. He was there at the signing of the agreement with never having the intention of honoring it. I didn't realize he was there.
Of course, he was there, and in 2003, for example, Putin signed an agreement recognizing Russian and Ukrainian borders. It was signed by both sides, by our president and their president. So in 2003, Putin himself recognized Ukrainian borders, and only 18 years later, he started saying crazy bullshit that no, Ukraine, it never even existed. Ukraine was always part of Russian Empire. They don't care about it. After this Ilovaisk operation, it was in the end of August 2014 when Russians brought their actual regular troops to Ukraine. They surrounded Ukrainian troops, and our presidents had a talk, and Russians promised to give them so-called green corridor. As soon as our troops started moving through this green corridor, so-called, this corridor became famous as Russian green corridor of death, because they started shooting at our troops, and they captured hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers. A lot of them got killed there, which again makes Russians very, very proud. But after that, we realized that agreements with Russians not worth even the paper they are written on. So you don't have to trust agreements with Russians. Not until Putin rules this country, not until Russians believe that they are strongest supreme nation in the world and they know this only path, and they will bring this path to other nations because it sucks. It smells like Hitler.
It does. And that's a bad stench.
I just want to pick up on a particular point that you made at the start. Are we saying that when the Minsk agreement reached the age of 18, Putin was no longer interested?
No. Minsk agreement was the one signed in 2014.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That one was another one that was recognizing Ukrainian borders in 2003.
I was going to say, there's definitely the way you worded it. It sounded like you were making a sly joke. It's very subtle about Putin not being interested because it had reached the age of 18, which is
too old for Putin.
I just wanted to check.
Do you have a couple more you want to get to there, Dave? Where are we here?
Oh, I was already unmuted. There we go. There is an interesting one. I can't verify it myself. Lorraine is asking, is the Russian Federation legally a member of the security at the UN? I heard that the Russian Federation never submitted any paperwork to join NATO or UN security after their name was changed. Is that just a technicality?
So there are results of voting for different countries to become member of the Security Council of the United Nations. You can find the names of those countries in the documents. They're available on the website of the United Nations Security Council, except for one document naming such country as Russian Federation, because they were automatically accepted as descendants of the USSR. And Russian Federation was a different country. USSR was a bit bigger than Russia. It had different ideology than Russia. The nationality of the USSR citizens was different as well. They were citizens of USSR. They weren't citizens of like Russia or whatever. I may be wrong here because we had this nationality in our passports, I think. But anyways, the point is Russia and USSR were two different countries. And somehow Russia got automatically accepted into this Security Council. I don't know. Maybe it had a chance to get accepted again because Boris Yeltsin was supporting this democratic vector of development of Russia 100%. And probably, they had all chances. I don't know. But this had to be done because we have laws, we have rules, right? Also, there must be a mechanism of excluding, of banishing those members of Security Council that don't make this world secure, okay? And I think that those mechanisms should be applied to Russia as well. Until we have those, not like that, unless we don't have those mechanisms implemented, Security Council will not have much sense in its existence whatsoever, I think.
Yeah. How can it have any credibility?
It's like having ISIS in the Security Council. Let them be.
Yeah. No, it's time to kick them from the clubs, man. Absolutely. I think it's time we turn over to Aimee because we have a good super chat that came in.
Yes, we do. I'll be right there with that. We have a good super chat from caught me off guard there. DJT for 10 American dollars says Starsky, as long as you have Albanian and Croatian fighters, Ukraine will win. These guys are battle-hardened fighters who have been fighting Russian mercenaries in the Balkans since the 90s. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you so much, DJT.
I completely agree. They are badass. They're completely badass. And by the way, Croatians had a very similar story to Ukraine because during the early stage of the war, if I'm not wrong, of course, they lost a bunch of territories, but they, at some point, they rapidly liberated those territories back. So we have a lot of things in common with Croatians and Albanians as well. They are completely badass, and again, probably two favorite Balkan nations in Ukraine.
Somebody's really, really loving capital letters in the chat. Okay, you can relax.
Yeah.
I see you. Slow your roll a tiny bit there. Wow. Yeah, and then auditing the absurd, friend of the channel there, YouTube unsubbed him. Yeah, he had to resub the channel. Like, thanks, YouTube. Thanks. Well done.
I had
What
to
the hell?
I know, and I had to re-add his
definitely
moderator
happens.
status as well. It does a lot.
Yeah.
We've been struggling with that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, YouTube's got a real thing going on. They got to relax. It's crazy. Like, we're still getting that thing where within 30 seconds of our standby that goes before we go live, YouTube's already demonetized us. And there's nothing wrong with the video. But that's the world we live in.
Exactly. All messed up.
Yeah. So let's see. Before we get too late, let's get a couple of more questions in from viewers. If Dave's still got any voice left in him, I hope we haven't killed him too much here.
We're just about okay. Rodent of Anger is asking, so if here we go, Rush-Nazians, maybe that needs to be reworded, have to stay until death, in quotes, can't they just surrender and apply for citizenship?
In most cases, that's exactly what they do. So those who, like, Ukrainians know what they die for in Ukraine. Because it's either we die or we surrender and die, or we try to win this war. There's no other option. Russians who come to Ukraine, to some extent, of course, they're fooled with this Russian propaganda. They're brainwashed that there's like thousands of Nazi making Ukrainian people suffer, and Ukrainian people sincerely want to hug with their Russian brothers. When they come to Ukraine, to cities like Kherson, and face thousands of civilians with Ukrainian flags saying, Russians, go home, we have no vodka here, they realize that probably something is wrong. Especially, again, when they're fed all their life that, this Russian army is indestructible and invulnerable, and then they're given some freaking rusty AK and food wraps and sent to Ukraine, to those trenches where they eat shit and die like pigs. It changes a lot. So they don't have any reason to die in Ukraine for. Absolutely. A lot of them don't understand what they're doing here. A lot of them, again, flee from Russia. We know that something like 300 or 500,000 men already left Russia. They went to Kazakhstan and Georgia and Armenia. because information is out there already. Russians still use internet. They still see that a lot of their soldiers literally die in Ukraine, and that bullshit that Ukrainians draw Zs and Vs on their own destroyed vehicles doesn't sound convincing at all, especially if those vehicles were never made in Ukraine and only used in Russia. And not all of them are stupid, so not all of them believe in that crap. Therefore, like majority of them don't want to die in Ukraine. They have no reason. They want to leave still, even despite the fact that like life in Russia is not a life, or like what we used to call life, but still everybody wants to leave. That's why a lot of them give up, and a lot of them try to save their lives, which I can only respect, because we save our bullets, and it's great.
Let's
That's
see.
awesome.
Oh, Aimee is ready.
I'm
Perfect.
here. Yes, I am. I was just going to say, we have some super chats. Yes. The first one is from Jane Adair, and she looks like she posted it twice. So I'm going to only read it once, but they're both for £8.99 sterling. And they say, I was wondering if anybody else has been in the situation where a soldier is asking for direct donations to replace down drone and money for food. That's interesting. So thank you for asking that question, Jane. And it's good to see you, by the way. We also have a super chat from Inkboy for €10, who says, what are your views on Belarus having any chances of invading Ukraine? I heard that they have seriously underfunded, undertrained, and underprepared army to do any kind of military operation. Thank you very much, Inkboy, and thank you everyone for your support.
Yes, in my opinion, Belarus will definitely participate in this war, and so we not like overestimated them, but they will do it a different way than we expected. So Russians are bringing their own troops to Belarus together with their like tanks and APCs and stuff. And they're going to form a bunch of battalion tactical groups on the territory of Belarus in order to use them to invade Ukraine from the north. And those battalion tactical groups will have Belarusian soldiers in them as well. Those will be used to replace losses and casualties taken by Russian troops. So those incomplete Russian battalion tactical groups will be filled with Belarusian personnel to cover all the holes, and they will be brought to Ukraine. So we expect that.
And that was a good response. And if it's okay, if I can just jump in real quick, Nancy had a good comment in the chat. She said, direct donation requests are usually scams. Please check the origin of requests before sending anything. That is extremely important, and that's why I had to jump in and get that shouted out real quick. Thank you, Nancy.
I totally support that. There was one funny thing when so it was like on some Telegram channel, I believe, Russian trolls were discussing my channel, and one of them said like Starsky went completely nuts, and he posted this screenshot where this guy was arguing with a scammer with my photo, and it was really funny. But as for scammers, yes, guys, you gotta pay attention. Specifically, I never ask for donations unless it's for some buying drones or other cause. And like what I usually do is I say thank you, of course, because it's important. People support my channel big time, and I appreciate it. but never trust people who directly asks you for donations, especially when they have suspicious name, especially if they post their WhatsApp numbers and stuff like that. Because on my channel, I saw a lot of that crap, unfortunately.
Some people are getting flooded in their comments with those damn scammers that just they're trying to say, you won something, get a hold of me, and pretend that they're the channel owner. It's a joke.
Yeah, it's
YouTube's got to do better. Yeah,
they really do.
It happens an awful lot in crypto circles as well, impersonating CEOs and all sorts.
Wow. Yeah, got to be diligent out there. Hey, Nick got here. How's it going there, Nick? Oh, he's muted in meets. We'll give him a minute here. So let's see. We've still got a couple of minutes left. What should we get to get ourselves all wrapped up? Oh, well, I think somebody just took care of some of that for me. We got a donation that just came in, so I will get the information dropped into the appropriate place, and we can have ourselves another shout out. Here we go.
Absolutely. And here I am. We got a donation from Andrew Herbert, who donated Canadian $4.65. Says, if the West gave you a Trident submarine, would the Russians retire? That is an interesting question. Thank you, Andrew.
I think Russians would perform this negative advance and regrouping in order to, get relocated to a better beneficial strategical positions and make a gesture of a goodwill to Ukrainian troops.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where do we have a couple? I can actually do one of these. There was a question in from Aaron Beckton. Hey, Starsky, is there any trustworthy Ukraine jewelers? It's been 11 years. I'm disabled. I finally saved enough to buy my wife and I our wedding bands. Long shot, I know. Slava Ukraini.
I don't think I can help you with this because I work in a different field. So I'm really sorry.
Yeah, you'd want to be sure, right? That's definitely a moment you'd want to be sure on. We got another shout out in if Amy's handy again.
I am. We got one from, I'm sorry, I like this name. It's awesome. Fluffin' McPuffin for $9.99 says, what is Russia buying with the money they make off of stolen Ukrainian grain? Food, winter coats, weapons? That is a very good question. Thank you so much.
Why do they need money in the first place? It's because they need to refill their and replace those vehicles that were lost, and they need to continue fueling this invasion into Ukraine. That's the answer. We're not talking about employing Russian people. We're not talking about avoiding the consequence of sanctions and stuff like that, because Putin doesn't care about citizens until they pay taxes. So we're talking about this war, and again, they're losing tremendous money every day. For example, this missile strike that they had a couple of days ago that didn't hit almost any military object in Ukraine. So each missile would cost millions of dollars. And they shot more than 80 missiles at Ukraine, and more than 40 of them were intercepted. So yeah, they need money, and we know exactly where those money are used for.
Yeah, good question. That was a good one. What do we got going on here? We're close, but we're not done. Nick made it just at the end there. How's it going, Nick? Are you hearing us?
Doing good. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. No, doing good. I didn't realize. I didn't know when. I know you guys were going to do it last night or yesterday, and then I saw you were streaming and saw the link, so I thought I'd come in. Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. Yeah, maybe not everybody caught all the memos and stuff about some shuffling of things, but well, you know now, right?
Mhm.
So let's see here. There was one other question I wanted to get to. Dave, did you want to get to any, or are you taking a break and resting the voice yet, or how are we doing?
I would love Nick to just talk. This is a rare opportunity. I normally want him to shut the fuck up, but no, Nick, go for it. Just
anything you want to get to there, Nick?
I can't. Well, unfortunately, I did miss most of the show. The questions that I caught were good ones. There's a Russian expression that Starsky's reminded me of. It's we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. They've never paid their workers, and I think there's actually also too, there is very little they could do with any money that they do get because of the sanctions. Most of the missiles and rockets that they've got now, all of the good ones that have any level of accuracy. And they had some. I mean, they did have some modern rockets that can, that you can target like a specific floor of a specific building, but they spent those a long time ago. What they've got now is, they're lucky if they hit the city they're aiming at, and they're now going back to. They are starting their T-62 production lines. It's called a T-62 because it was made in 1962. That's why, and they are bringing those production lines back. Yeah, they can't do anything more modern than a T-62 because a T-62 was the last tank that did not have modern equipment, modern targeting, anything like that. And they don't have the chips anymore. They can't. The sanctions have crippled them so much they can't. So that's it. They're down to T-62s. These tanks can't even fire while moving. They don't have gyro stabilization on the turrets or anything like that. They can't hit aircraft. They can't, and they're sitting ducks for it. It's 1962. Those are the tanks that they are now, and they do have some T-90s and stuff like that, but most of them are in boneyards, rusted so far through that the tracks have fused together because they left them outside for decades. So they are producing new tanks. They're going to bring in the best, most modern equipment Russia can muster, and that is a tank manufactured today, but it's the 1962 version of it.
Yeah, Hansen. Sorry about that. Soon the Russians will invent the stone wheel.
I mean, 62 is not that bad. It's just 60 years old. It's like
that's funny.
It's a reasonably good tank, and I think it doesn't have the Jack in the Box quote feature, which is a really cute thing, and the Ukrainians have been using this beautifully. So the ammunition for most Russian tanks is actually stored in the main area with the people in it. And so what happens is if you hit the tank just right and you hit the ammunition, it detonates and the entire tank explodes from the inside. What happens then is the top of the tank blows 30 feet into the air and lands 30 feet away. That's why you've been seeing so many, because the Ukrainians have gotten really good. They can just basically one-shot one of these tanks. It turns out that's a feature. I shit you not. That's a feature. That is not a design fault. Now, in U.S. tanks, we put the ammunition in the turrets so that can't happen. The reason they do it, I shit you not, is so that the tank can be reused reasonably easily. They put the explosion has now all gone out of the tank, just replace the crew, put the top back on, and that shows you the concern they have for their own people. They would rather keep the equipment. Shit. That's the feature, so that it's called a Jack in the Box. I see Starsky nodding, so I think you've seen this happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, yesterday I showed this video on my stream from Chelyabinsk. There was this cargo train bringing Russian wrecks to this factory, and basically every wreck missed its turret. Mostly there were like BMPs, but same shit. It's all of its ammunition is stored directly under the turret So it's completely true, and still, not even those flying tourists, they still spend more time flying than Russian pilots, which is funny.
Well, I think that's their Air Force now, isn't it? Is just the turrets. It's like they count the number of turrets flying through the air, and like we've just doubled the size of our Air Force.
Yeah,
But
that's why their Air Force are called like Air and Cosmic Force.
Who in their right mind signs up for an army who designs their tanks to be hosed out and reused? I mean, come on.
Oh, it's all their stuff. Remember when their flagship got hit in the Baltic? I think it was the Baltic Sea ship, and they couldn't put the fire out. The reason is they don't usually have fire stations on their own Navy vessels, and the reason is they just figure if a fire breaks out, that's it. It's a total loss. So they leave it at that. So, I mean, the U.S., we have like a fire station. I forget what the regs are, but on a Navy ship, you basically have to have a minimum of 3 fire stations. Everybody knows how to do it because if there's a fire on the ship, every single person has now been, is now a fire containment officer. They all can do this, and they take it really seriously. In Russia, it's just sort of like, sorry, we just lost the ship, and it's a very, very different military mindset in the Russian military.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Remember that that submarine Kursk, actually, it sank in 2004, I think, something like that. So it went down. And Russians arrived, and they examined this. They brought this underwater drone or whatever. They examined the submarine, and they were like, "Oh, they're all dead. We gotta bring our engineers and try to bring this submarine back and stuff." While I think Swedish government and other European guys were saying, guys, we have like technology that can help to rescue those sailors. They were like, they're all dead. Then every ship that had a passive sonar registered SOS signals from the inside of the submarine, because those submariners survived for 2 more days until they died, and they were Morsing their messages. And there is this famous letter from Captain Kolesnikov, who said everything he thinks about Putin and Russia and everything else in this letter, and it's still out there. I think it's available on the internet also.
I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, that was and we're sitting there, and it's the gaslighting out of Russia's insane. We're hearing the taps. It's Morse code, and they're like, no, these are just random noises as the expansion and contraction of because it's getting cold, and it's like, no, this is Morse code, dude. You got people alive in there. No, we don't.
Wow.
And then remember this freaking interview. I think Putin was at some show. I think it was Western show even, and he was asked like, what happened to the Kursk submarine? And he was like, it sank.
That's it. Just wow. Horrible. Just horrible. Oh man.
They're gonna get murdered in the winter, and I got to tell you, I feel sorry for a number of the soldiers. I don't feel sorry for all of them, but a number. It's a really rough situation, and they are. You think the slaughter's bad now? It's going to get really bad when it gets cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to imagine very many Russians getting out of this situation alive by any stretch of the imagination. And Putin knows this. He's not stupid. He knows this. That's how ruthless a human. He doesn't care, and not in the slightest. He doesn't lose an ounce of sleep over it. It's got nothing to do with. It's got nothing to do even with Ukraine anymore. It's about him. It's about him not getting wiped out because he screwed this up. So now every long shot odd that he can take, he will take. It doesn't matter how many lives he throws at this. Not in the slightest.
Good point, man. Let's see if Amy's handy. We do have a super chat that just slid in.
There we go. Thank you so much. It is from level 70 for Canadian $6.99. Says, how effective have those Taiwanese drones been? They carry lots of bombs, apparently. I have seen no footage of them being used. Thank you so much, level 70. Thank you very much.
So my idea is that those drones are currently being used in the hottest spots of the front line, which is south or east of Ukraine. And the reason why we don't see a lot of videos from those drones, probably because Ukrainians try to save as much as possible. Save those drones as much as possible. Knowing the range of those drones, you can calculate the possible location of those drones, and they can target their location. And probably that's why we don't see those videos yet. But we will, definitely.
Can't wait. The queen of capital letters is telling us how NASA is evil now. Man, you really got to come to one of our debunking shows. You're at the wrong one. What was the comment, Amy? Do you have it?
I do. It is saying that NASA belongs to the satanic networks and it will be revealed. I'm sorry, but I can't shout that loud because that's what caps lock means. If you I'm sorry, dear. But oh my goodness.
Wow. Okay, then. Well, let's just, moving along now.
Yeah, good idea.
What do you say to that? I mean, come on. Ridiculous. Donald Trump will be back. Oh, yeah, in front of a judge. Come on.
Oh, I have heard that. If you don't mind me jumping in with that, someone was saying that Julie Green, that she was saying that Trump should be reinstated by the end of the year. This should be interesting. I think maybe that's what she's talking about. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, did you hear about the Supreme Russian Shaman?
Ooh, no. What's that all about?
So, Supreme Russian Shaman, I don't remember his name completely because it's like some crazy magical name. So it was a publication in some Western newspaper. Yesterday, I even showed it to my viewers on the stream. So this shaman had this special ritual for Russia to defeat all of its enemies, and we had that rumor that Putin actually had shamans officially employed in Kremlin. I don't really believe in this conspiracy, but on the other hand, imagine it's true. Because he likes those numbers. He attacked Georgia on 8th of August, 08, 08, 08, 08. Then we had information that probably he was trying to attack Ukraine on 22nd of February 2022. It would be 22/02/2022, because he was advised by his shaman to do that. But because Xi Jinping asked him not to do that during the Olympic Games, he attacked on February 24th, and that's why he freaking lost in any respect. but I heard that a lot from different sources, that there are like shamans and there's a lot of like Russian conspiracy shows, like that one with contactless fighting, that is specifically taught to Russian spetsnaz, and they can just do ninja shit and kill people without even touching them. And one of those shows were one of those shows was like showing that there are psychics, people with extraordinary abilities, working for FSB and protecting their president from all the evil from other psychics, by the way, widely employed by Pentagon, of course, the satanic Pentagon. And that they do crazy shit. They can see like military maps of Ukrainian command, for example, or American command through the like across the ocean and stuff like that. And it's like, guys, those shows are funded by the state, because like mostly everything you see on Russian TV is either funded or like approved, right, by the state. And can you imagine that?
No. we
I'm not even talking about alien technologies, because as it appears, and there are pictures proving this, as it appears, in 50s, in Siberia, a UFO crashed, and Russians were lucky to bring their KGB guys there and capture those UFO technologies and use them in their indestructible vehicles today.
That's the Orcs in Black, right? That's who went and got all the technology and everything?
Orcs in Black.
Here come the Orcs in Black. There's been some amazing comments from the viewers during this chat.
There have been, I know, me too. And there have been some good shout outs too. So if it's okay, I'll grab those real quick. We have a super chat for ZOMG1103 for $10 American. Says, Starsky, how long do you estimate until Russians begin conscripting potatoes from the field to send to the front? And then Lorraine Sweet gave us a flying pear that looks like a superhero. Thank you so much, the both of you. Thank you.
We got one more that just came in. There was a direct donation as well.
Thank you. And then we also got a member chat from M2M. Do the Russians have people standing around the Kremlin chanting and swaying side to side? LOL. And then we had Rudy Riotic Aware donated Canadian $10, says, hello, Shills. Hello, brother Starsky. Wanted to let everyone know that the Bubba, crap, Starsky, help me. Cotton Cutie shirt is now live. Thank you so much. And they gave the link in that too. So definitely check that out, please. It's rioticwear.com/collections/Starsky. So thank you very much, everyone.
All right. I'll drop the link here in the chat now.
Yeah, there's this Cotton Cutie. It's a mythological creature that was born after all this cotton happening in the Russian bases and their ammunition storages and everywhere. So Cotton Cutie is a very cute and deathly Ukrainian mythical creature that is both cute and it kills. And you can find different stuff with Cotton Cutie in that merch store. In Ukrainian, it's called Bavovnyatko. It's extremely cute. I mean, you gotta check it out.
Cool. Maybe we'll have to throw it on the set for next week's show.
Yeah. And by the way, Dick, I just dropped that photo into the chat. So that's according to Russian television. That's like actual picture of this UFO that like crashed into Siberia, and Russian Soviet KGB acquired a real UFO that helped them to conquer the world.
There we go. I got it up on the screen now.
It certainly wasn't their military, that's for sure.
Why does Streamlabs get that shout out so wrong? Hold on a second here. See that? It said Charlie Welch has become a channel member. No, he did a channel member message. Why is it Streamlabs always gets that one wrong? But
because
oh well.
Streamlabs is silly. Let me grab it real quick. It's from Charlie Welch, and he says, "Great job today by a small crew, and stay safe, Starsky." Thank you so much, Charlie.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much, bro.
Yeah, we're a little past 2 hours here. Maybe we should do a little thoughts and wrap ups and stuff.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. All right.
Want to take us around, Aimee?
I sure can. I'm going to first start off with our poor host who has no voice. So, poor Dave. What are your thoughts and wrap ups on this evening?
I'm going to keep it brief. I'm going to have a little quote from Sable Eagle from the chat. I'm going to just steal his joke because it's just amazing. What has 4,000 legs and glows in the dark? 3,000 Russian veterans.
That's brilliant.
Good stuff. Thank you.
That is very good. Thank you so much. Before we move on, I just got a super chat in from ZOMG 1103 for 10 American dollars. Says, can we donate art to be used as merch? That is a very good question. I will defer to Dick on that one, but what do you think, Dick?
Absolutely. And I'm sure, we ourselves have a few ideas that we're trying to get around to finishing and putting up. So any assistance would be very welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And then next up, we have Nick Soutter. Good to see you again, Nick. What are your thoughts on this evening?
Thank you. Glad to be here. What are my thoughts on this evening? The movie Seven had one of the best lines I've ever seen in almost any movie, just about it. Morgan Freeman is talking about the killer and why this killer is so unbelievably terrible. He said he's methodical, he's exacting, and worst of all, patient. And that, worst of all, patient. There's no opponent I am more terrified of than the patient one, and the Ukrainian army has been immensely patient. And if you take a look at everything they do, so many times when they've got to be angry as hell, and you'd imagine they'd rush forward or they'd advance a plan faster than it should advance, and they don't. From that bombing, from the bombing on the bridge, which to the best of my knowledge, still nobody's taken credit for, but that was a patient act, and that was when the opportunity arose, they took it. And from between that and the what was it, a 60-day feint, making it look like they were going to attack in one region and attacking in another. That's patience, and that's these are people who are more determined than just about any army I've seen in a very long time. What saddens me is that we'd probably be less aware of this if it wasn't Russia and a nuclear-armed nation. But the Ukrainians have a tremendous amount to be proud of, and I'm delighted. When you guys here cover it, we try to cover it on in time as much as possible. And Starsky's making the rounds, and thank God, because it does affect the rest of the world. We don't think about it that way, but it absolutely does, because Putin would not stop in Ukraine. So if we don't stop him here, he's not going to stop. And so Ukraine has become the beachhead for the entire planet, stopping nothing short of Adolf Hitler. So I'm thrilled that people donate, and I'm thrilled that people are taking this seriously, because it's very hard to underestimate how serious this is. It's very hard to overestimate just how amazing the Ukrainian army has performed. I think it's a blessing that Starsky comes on here and talks to people, and I think it's a blessing that the Shills decide to host it. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. We appreciate
Thanks,
having
buddy.
you with us. And thank you for that insight. That was awesome. Next up, I just have a couple more shout outs to handle. We've got Phil Greeley for $19.99, who says, just to say thanks, guys, for all the work behind the scenes. Slava Ukraini. Thank you so much, Phil. Then we have Autistic Shill with a member message saying, child of retired Chilean NASA employee. I'm Ebles. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. And next up, we do have our very own Operator Starsky. Operator Starsky, what are your thoughts and wrap-ups on this evening?
Very glad to hear your questions, guys, because I see that you follow the news, and it's very important. I see that people are interested to learn what happens. And as much as I can, I will be providing you with the information. So thank you so much. Again, very happy every time when I'm here. I'm very happy to see the names that I know in the chat. And of course, I'm very happy to see my family, Dick, Dave, Nick, and Amy, of course. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And we're so glad that you're able to come here every week and talk to us about everything. So thank you so much. Please stay safe. Thank you. And then next up, we have Dick Dawson. Dick, what are your thoughts and wrap-ups on tonight?
Well, I have one that's slightly different. So ZOMG1103 sent something in, and I'm just glad we connected here so I can show this. So let me bring this up. But this is their work in making a little joke about, the whole toilet situation in Ukraine. That's awesome.
I love it.
Oh, I love it. Well done. Well done. Thanks for sending that in. Damn, I didn't check the email in a few days, so I almost missed it. Thanks for giving me a shout in the chat to do that and check it out. That's awesome. And yeah, I want to. Yeah, that's great, eh? Let me just bring it back and forth one more time here. He's got the paint on the shell and everything. Or the, Yeah. Look at that. That's awesome.
It's brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, big thanks to everybody for joining us and, helping get the word out and making sure that the stories are told and the truth gets out. And, always wishing that Starsky can stay safe and, take care over there and just, keep seeing you all the time because we love it. Let's see. Amy, then.
Yes.
I do believe it's your turn.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm just floored by all the news that we've heard today and all of the terrible things. I have been reading up on it, and there were quite some poignant stories that we'd heard. I've read them in the New Yorker before about how, many people were victims of sexual violence because of this, and it was just really very hard to take. And that's just the most horrible thing that you can do to anyone in a war. It's just so demeaning and so humiliating and everything. So that was hard to see and hear, but thankfully everybody is staying safe, and hopefully they'll get the help that they need to help process that. But I do want to thank everyone in the panel for coming. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone in the chat especially. Thank you so much for coming and listening to this. We need to get the word out about all these things. Knowledge is power. So thank you for that. And I want to, thank you for all the support that you've given as well. Thank you very, very much. So I just want to wish everyone a good night and stay safe, please. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Good night.
Good night. Slava Ukraini.
Night all.
Slava Ukraine.
It's over. Go home.